Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. We had a great guitarist and super cool guest there with Mark Engles, the guitar player and founder of Dredge and Black Map. I just got turned on to these bands recently, and I got to tell you, they're phenomenal. Black Map's new album is, it's kind of like a constant. I mean, to me, to listen to it, it's like a hard rock version of Dark Side of the Moon. And we'll talk about that. I want to just give a quick shout out and thank you to Monica Side Evanson for hooking us up. Monica, thank you for thinking of me. Real quick on Mark, he's a founding member, guitarist, and songwriter for the bands Dredge and Black Map, as I mentioned. Dredge's music, and dude, I hate to come up with these categories, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
I get it. It's all good.
Okay, that's hard.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. Dredge's music is like prog metal with really good songwriting. Is that fair, prog metal?
I wouldn't say Dredge has metal as much as people say prog rock.
Prog rock. It's too, you have the clean high ends, which goes on that, then, like metal when I was a kid, I don't know how old you are, but metal when I was a kid is totally different than metal now.
Sure. I mean, I grew up with metal. Categories are always tough. I think we have aggression and we play our instruments pretty hard when there's a lot of dirt and fuzz going on. But I mean, definitely rock and roll.
Totally rock
on the prog side, atmospheric.
Yes.
Both bands, yeah.
And Dredge was formed when Mark was in high school and has released 5 studio albums, 5 EPs, and a live album. Black Map is heavier, more straight ahead rock and alternative, again, with really great atmospheric effects and very vibey passages. The band started when Dredge was on a hiatus back in 2013. Black Map has 2 studio albums, 2 EPs, and a really amazing new LP coming out soon called Melodoria, and it should be out early February 2022. Mark's toured the States as well as the world. He's played major festivals all over. And again, this is really great songwriting. Each song has a very definitive emotional arc, and that's what I really like about the band. Thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Craig. Appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Your older brother got you into music. He was a drummer, and his band used to practice at your house, so you had access to all these instruments, and that's how you started playing. You mentioned in your bio that your folks were really supportive of all of that. Were they musical?
Yeah, they were musical. They weren't playing instruments at all. There weren't instruments in my home starting out. That's where my brother came in, but there was always music going. So they weren't themselves instrumentalists or in bands or anything. They played when they were younger. They always joked that the genetics skipped a generation because my grandmother was the badass organist at church and all that.
That's cool.
So but the main point would be that, every Sunday morning we had Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, and my mom had her Beatles records and things like that. But, so there was music going, and I think subliminally that definitely influences you because it's going through the house all the time.
Sure.
But it wasn't until my brother started playing in bands and instruments were around because his bandmates, he was the drummer. They played at our house. My parents are supportive in the sense that they let them do that. That's like an indirect support, right? Like let the kids play the rock and roll at their house. A lot of parents would say hell no, right? So that's about that. And always giving me mixtapes. My bro, he had vinyl going, and he would spin the records. I'd hear it coming out of his room. And when you have an older brother, you look up to him. So
does he still play?
No, he does not play. He hasn't played for a while, but we still are very close and go to concerts together. And if I'm playing hometown where he is, I always make sure he's side stage, or we're still very connected. So
that's cool.
It's great. Yeah.
You also mentioned that you took a few months worth of lessons, but you're basically self-taught. Is that correct?
Yeah. So by the time I started taking lessons, I'd probably already kind of gotten into a spot where I was comfy with some of the basics because it came pretty quickly for me. So it really just felt odd where, maybe it was the teacher, who knows? But, they wanted me to hold my pick differently, or they really wanted me to change some things. And I know, for instance, the analogy would be like if you play golf or there's certain other things in life, there are things, if you're doing it wrong and you change them, it could absolutely improve what you're doing. But for me, I just couldn't get into it. It was only about 3 months of lessons. I'd probably already been playing for a year or two on my own. So I just couldn't feel it. Later on in life, I did do some other sort of lessons after I'd already kind of established myself. I took classical guitar. That helped a lot. with some things later on, but no, early on, it was pretty much just kind of listening to records and learning them on my own. But it's also, I don't think I always had the desire to be a total soloist either. I mean, I learned solos, but I've always felt like my rhythm guitar playing was what I desired to go into. So yeah, lessons for me, I just didn't stick. So.
Well, I'm not surprised with the rhythm stuff, because one of my questions somewhere in here was, it's hard to believe Black Map's a trio. And that's why, man, your rhythm playing is it's very full, and you know when to hold back, and it's really very cool, and that makes a huge difference.
I get that. I think a lot of that too is our bass player, lead vocalist, bass player, Ben Flanagan. He's first a guitar player too. So when we decided to do this, and he's like, well, I want to play bass, something different. The bass is driven. He plays up high on a lot of the parts too. So it almost acts as like a second guitar, if you will. Yeah. So that's part of that too. But yeah, we're both rhythm players. It just happens that he's on bass. Rush did that a lot too, right?
Sure.
Of course, Motorhead, where, Lemmy at times almost sounds like another guitar. He's up on that Rickenbacker, and it's all driven and distorted. So yeah, that's part of that too. But,
were you a fan of Motorhead? Make sure you check out guitarmerch.com. We've got loads of cool guitar, music, and everyone loves guitar t-shirts, hoodies, and mugs, and everything comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to you. Head on over to guitarmerch.com.
Yeah, I never got as into them as I did some of the other bands around that era. But I mean, when you hear that as a kid, you're just like, what is this? So cool. I think I couldn't get into them as much because they weren't as diverse as some of the other bands that I liked.
They were. I know what you're saying.
They were kind of a one-trick pony. And what they did was amazing with that one trick. But I really loved Sabbath and Maiden and bands like that. Or take you on a little bit more of a journey, and songs that they would branch out a little more. So
the reason I ask, I don't remember. I can think of it, but about 3 or 4 months, I had a guy on the show who was involved. He was the early, like an assistant engineer on it was John Paterno, who's a very successful engineer, but he was an assistant engineer at the time working on something with Lemmy. And Lemmy comes in and he's playing it nothing. And he's playing all the wrong chords. And so the engineer on the main engineer on the gig, or the producer, says, hey, Lemmy, it's B flat, F, and C. Those are the chords. And Lemmy goes, I tried those. I didn't like the way they sounded, so I'm trying some others. That's very, okay. Like, what do you tell Lemmy? Okay, right? Funny. I tried those. I'm trying some others. One of the questions I had is, you don't typically see self-taught players, especially in the prog, because it's complicated, man. Musically, it's complicated. Musically, technically, harmonically, it's a little more advanced. How did you get so proficient at that style of playing? It's not easy.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to Dino, the drummer of Dredge, is also an amazing piano player.
Okay.
I think writing music with him over the years was kind of also a form of lessons. I mean, when I first started out, I'm learning by ear. Of course, I knew the notes on the guitar, the frets, if you will, what notes the frets are. But writing music with him over the years definitely got more proficient in knowing chords and progressions and shapes and things like that. So, it wasn't from lessons or typical education in that sense, but he and I working together definitely evolved my musical prowess, if you will, when it comes to what's it called? Theory, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't taking school per se, but he was always more proficient than I was in that because of his piano upbringing. So, but at the same time, I still can't do some crazy sweeping pentatonic shredding that some people can do because I never really worked on that. But my right hand rhythmically has always been my strong suit. And then knowing where I want to go just from my ear and what notes I want to hear, what sounds and tones I want to hear.
It's interesting. People, I have a lot of players on and say, well, I'm not really a shredder. Me personally, I don't listen to shredding music really. Mike Gilmore's my favorite player.
Right.
I don't, that guy's never shredded it. You don't need, it's like note placement and notes for me anyway. I mean, they're
eight notes out of one fret,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Bending.
Totally.
Yeah.
Songwriting again, also it's in both of these bands, in Dredge and Black Map, is definitely higher level. How did you get into songwriting and how'd you get so skilled at it?
Well, again, teamwork with all the other guys too, but I think just over the years, all the bands that you're influenced by and listening to what they're doing, and if there's a part or a change or a song that you really love, learning the song, learning what they did there, trying to figure out, why they went there, how they went there, just learning from the ones that you love, right? I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's true. Why does that part right there feel so amazing? What are they doing? What's the instrumentation doing? Where's the melody of the vocal sitting with the chords of the guitar and bass and piano or whatever? I mean, I think it's just that, really trying to figure out, sometimes it's a change that's so much more obvious than you thought, and it feels so much bigger. And sometimes it's the obvious. Sometimes there's a song you love and there's something in there that you never realized was a trick you could do, so.
Yeah. So just a lot of studying, it sounds like. You did 10,000 hours.
Just learning your favorites too, right? So, yeah.
For Dredge, your last album was 2011's Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy. And I got to tell you, probably not what people talk about. The woman on that cover, even though she had like this goofy, that is like one of the sexiest I mean, one of the sexiest photos I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a good one. We were just going for something very different for us. So it was Beau Roulette did the photo, and it was a friend of his who was modeling at the time, and the mask is just part of the marketing for the album. So
yeah, it was great. But I just couldn't. I was like, wow, and that's what made it. I'm like, why is this photo so sexy? It's got a mask. You can't even see this woman's face. But just the whole vibe was like, yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the whole album was something different. It was the first time that we hadn't produced it ourselves, well, with other producers, but we did it with Dan the Automator, and it was the whole thing from day one was just kind of, let's do everything different.
Yeah,
so, for better or for worse. So
I liked it. It was a great record. And I had a question. I know we talked earlier. Is Dredge done, or is there something in the works, or are you coming back? Or
no, definitely not done. We were just in the studio the other day together working on some new material. We have some products coming out. We just re-released our first LP on vinyl last month. And then there's a kind of a big product release coming out, I think early next year, 2022. And then definitely a new album at some point. It's just been a slow roll, of course. And then definitely some touring on the horizon for sure.
Great.
So not done at all.
Great. Really good.
Just slow.
Good to hear that.
Yeah.
What were some of your challenges early on as far as getting both Dredge and Black Map, like traction and visibility? And maybe what did you do? What kind of things did you do, or did the band do to push that forward?
I know with Dredge early on, one of the toughest things we realized was that because we were coming from a hard rock or metal styling, we started out, we were just doing metal covers. We started writing our own music. It was still very, very heavy. A lot of that's not even out in the world. I think one of the EPs you can find on YouTube. I mean, it's all yelling, it's power chords, it's tuned down. Point being is we were coming out of that and we decided to branch out and be more melodic. Gavin and us, we all realized he could sing really well. So my point is that we found it hard early on because we kind of sat in between genres. And so it was tough to get tours. It was tough to get certain shows, because we weren't really fitting into, hard metal or hardcore stuff, but we were kind of louder and more rocking than maybe some of the mellower indie and emo stuff. We weren't fitting into a scene, if you will, which we actually enjoyed. We enjoyed that aspect, that we weren't riding coattails and all of that.
Yeah.
It was difficult early on, because that helped younger bands, especially in the early and mid 2000s. When you fit into a scene, it was like you automatically got into this track,
What bin do you go into in the
Right.
record stores kind of
Yeah,
thing?
and
And
that
now
and that,
it's
and that would help because one band would get really big, and you name, there's always the different scenes that came out, and then all these other bands would come in. A lot of times they'd be on the same label. There was these different labels, and they all kind of had 5 to 10 bands that were all kind of the same, and they would all tour together and all of that. That was a little bit difficult, but at the same time, looking back, it was pride. There's pride in that as well, because we kind of just wanted to do our own thing. So yeah. With Black Map, we've had a great time going out with bands that we are friends with and find similar stylings. And we're also fortunate that we've had other bands. Chris Robine was in a band called Far, who actually influenced me in the 90s. But we feel fortunate that being in Dredge and Far and having bands that already had traction, it was a little bit easier for us to get a head start. So
you use your own personal contacts to.
Yeah, and I think that's part
great.
of the work, a part of the work you've put in over the years, and you don't feel bad about that at all. I mean,
no, why should you?
In the industry for that long, it was a little bit easier to get like, oh, this is the new band of these two guys. So that was cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. With music is one of the few professions. Like, I'm a guy who comes out of the business world, and it's people are always, you just made a comment, and I'm not saying it's to pick on you. You said, well, we worked hard. Yeah, fuck yeah, that's normal. But in music, people, well, I don't want to ask for too much. I'm not saying I don't want to be successful. Yeah, I don't want to be. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing with musicians, and it's like it shouldn't be, especially nowadays. It's like, man, you have to work hard. You should get whatever anything that you can move forward.
There was a running theme with I know with Dredge fans, I would see on message boards. It was so interesting to see where they would say, why doesn't Dredge want to be successful? And it was the strangest question, because it was almost like they actually thought that. Not the idea that, well, we're trying to be successful, we're just trying to do it in a different way that's maybe not pop mainstream, but there's plenty of bands out there that have been successful, Tool being one of them, and Mastodon, it was on and on. You don't have to be pop mainstream to be successful.
Hell no.
But it's just amazing to think that they thought that. We sit around and go, oh, I'd hate to just play music for a living and not have a day job.
I know. How can I sabotage myself?
Of course we want to do that. No, it's just the rolling of the dice, because it's more difficult to be successful and not be mainstream. Right. So
it really is.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is I don't know anything. I mean, I hate to say this hosting the show. I'm not a pop. My whole life, I've never listened to pop music. Not once.
Yeah, me either, really. I mean, there's some amazing, big, huge hits out there that I love, but
yes, right.
Bubblegum pop and all the lighter stuff has been not in my life either.
Yeah, and people will say, "Hey, that's a great record." I'll be like, "Wonderful, enjoy it."
Good time with that one.
Yeah, right. And there's a for me, there's a emotional connection. Maybe the struggle, the grit, not that Pete, the artist, didn't struggle, but
in the introspection and
not like, today's a wonderful, that's great, but that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear like, get me through today,
Right.
Questions about some of Black Map songs I really enjoy.
Sure.
We talked about this, but it's really hard to believe you guys are a trio. What is the biggest challenge about being a trio?
You know what? There hasn't been much. I think the newer album is the first bigger challenge we're going to have in a fun way, because we did put a few more instruments in there. When we first started, we really wanted to be a straight up riff oriented trio, power trio, if you will. This album, we have branched out a bit more. Naturally, it's always fun to evolve, right? So
yeah.
This album will especially live, there'll be some more challenges, but we're already looking forward to doing them, whether it's some different guitar pedals to get the sounds that we had, if there's an organ part, can I imitate that on my guitar? Are there going to be some backing tracks here and there? I'm not a big fan of backing tracks at all, but I think if they're more of just sound effects and things like that, I can be about that.
Yeah.
I have a rule that as long as it's not vocals or guitars or live instruments, I don't want them, but pads and things like that. but long story short, the challenge on this album will be probably the first time with Black Map as a trio that we're gonna have to have fun with it.
Yeah.
So I'm doing some more backup vocals, which I haven't typically done, but
how'd you enjoy? How'd you enjoy?
I'm learning every day with it within rehearsal, and Ben's been great, so it's been fun. I've already done it a couple of times, live shows the last couple of months, so getting better and better. But another example of just adding more to our sound live. So
awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ben Flanagan.
Yeah.
What an incredible voice. I mean, just an amazing voice. Yes. How did you guys hook? I mean, he's first class. How did you guys hook up?
Just friends of friends in the San Francisco music community. So we've met 2006 or 7, just became friends first, had a lot in common musically with what we liked, and then became roommates. So we were just friends and roommates and listened to music and played music together, but we're never in a band together. And then Dredge took him out. He became Dredge's kind of 5th member live because of that voice and his guitar playing. So he would add rhythm guitar and vocals on a couple tours. And then, we were just discussing, we were having a beer one day and I said, wouldn't it be cool to maybe start just kind of a more straight ahead rock band. And then when Chris Robine, the drummer, was on board, it was kind of, let's go. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Very natural, right? Just kind of like natural progression into forming that band,
Well, plus you got to test each other out in a sense on the road and playing with each other, each other.
We already knew each other,
which is like, it's like getting married. You probably want to live with a person before you just get married, I mean, I would. I mean, I wouldn't recommend not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier before we started, but Chinaski from And We Explode, that's a nod to Charles Bukowski.
Yep.
Who's the Bukowski pup?
That's Ben. Ben writes all the lyrics, and he's a big Bukowski fan amongst other authors.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of themes that Ben deals with are, how some people can go numb in life, how some people can get to that spot, and that's the Chinaski character, right? He's sleeping through the fire, So yeah, when I heard the song title and lyrics, I was into it.
Yeah,
it's a cool little genre of literature that not everyone knows, but if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. I like that. And We Explode, particularly part 2. Man, what an fucking amazing track. Tell me, what's the backstory to that?
I think that started off as Ben had a demo with the melody, the vocal melodies. That's one of the few, it's the very first record. So that was probably the only track that was built in the studio. Sometimes as a band, you go in and you have an idea, but you build it, normally kind of towards the end of a record when you've gotten the rock songs down. At least for us, it's fun to kind of build something from scratch. So the melody was there, but we built the instruments around it. And I know Aaron Hellam, the producer, came up with the drum, the kind of the drum idea, drum sounds. So it's fun to make those songs after the rock songs are there. And yeah, I love that kind of thing too. It was fun to build the atmosphere.
Yeah, atmosphere.
The guitar lines. So
good in that, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned Aaron Hellam. He mixed and he engineered in droves. This is the first time I think I've heard his work, and the mix was phenomenal in that. Did he do the new record, Melodoria?
No, the new one was tracked by Zach Aaron from Sharkbite, who was Aaron Hellam's basically business partner. So basically they're part of the same world. Aaron decided to kind of take a break from recording, so Zach picked up on it. So Zach tracked it, and then also Drew Owens out of Roseville did some more tracking, and then Bo Burchell mixed it.
Correct.
So Bo Burchell is from a band called Seosin, but now he's gotten into producing and mixing, and he's just awesome. So
yeah,
he had done some of our friends' work in Middle Class Rut. We're buddies with them, and they turned us on to him. So Bo Burchell is responsible for the mix of Melodoria, and it sounds awesome.
Oh, it's incredible, man. It's like I said, it reminds me very much of like 10,000 Days in the mix there.
Oh,
It's
cool.
really
Yeah, yeah.
good.
Nice.
Excuse me. Melodoria, honestly, I just thought it was an amazing record. I'm going to ask you about a couple of songs, but great guitar, really cool riffs. I felt the songs were like very positive, very uplifting, sort of like, I don't know, I have this like righteous. I don't know if that's even a descript, it just makes you feel like, you listen to that when you're in the gym, you listen to that when like you're ready, before you go into battle or something like that, it was just so good. It was really nice too to listen to all three records back to back.
Right.
And I'm not gonna, I don't want to. I'm not a judgmental. I'm not saying you got better, but it was nice to see the musical evolution.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Sure,
it
sure.
was not a matter of better. It was just a growth and evolution of progress. It was really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think each record's for Black Map, each record has become more melodic.
Hmm.
We branched out more with instrumentation. I mean, the first record is definitely a riff oriented record. It's tuned down in droves. We started adding a little bit more atmosphere and a little bit more melody, and then Melodoria even more so.
It's
more melody. That we're not tuned down the whole time. It's a little bit higher, with register. So yeah, it just makes sense. I mean, I like when bands evolve. I like when bands try something different, and we could make the same record every time, but that's boring. So
yeah. Do you have a favorite track?
I don't, and that goes back to what we were discussing earlier with trying to pick the so-called single, or when management and label comes to you and says, what song do you want to release first? It kind of goes back to the favorite track thing. It's a good problem to have. I can't say I have a favorite. I have favorites, multiple, but I mean, there's not a bad song on the record. I dig how they're diverse too. There's a lot of different styles of songs on the record. So that's what we're stoked on,
Well, they are diverse, but the order that you put them in too, that was very deliberate. It's not an easy science to do that.
No,
you guys did a great.
No, I think we had at least 5, 6, 7 different orders.
Yeah.
And then you think you have one, and then a day goes by and someone texts and goes, well, I think it's this. Damn it.
Well, I'm just going to ask you about a couple of my favorites. Burnout.
Yes.
Tell me about that song.
Ben's demo. Right away, heard the chorus. We all loved it, and knew that we could make it into a big, for me, I was like, okay, we're going to put some big sludgy guitars on that, and we can put some really atmospheric verses. And, it just, even though the demo, it's great. He'll send these demos. The vocals always sound great because he's a great singer, but it's kind of cool because the instrumentation will kind of, he won't push too hard on making it sound great. So we can all bring it to that level that the album should be.
Yeah.
So, it's just that kind of song, that slow tempo. I just wanted to put those big spongy guitars on there. And I mean, his vocal melodies and the chorus are just huge,
Such a good track. And then in the last track, the one right after Melodoria, the title track, tell me about that one.
Wow. How did that one go? That might've been us together writing that in the room, I think. Which for this record, there wasn't as many of those as normal. The earlier records, we wrote a lot more in the room together, which is why they're more riff oriented. But I think this one was that little guitar line came, the first guitar line, the verses. I think we were just jamming around, and it kind of, we always have something recording in the room. And then, the chorus, I think, was a guitar part that I had. I just wanted to get, kind of reminds me of like Sigur Rós or Mogwai, just the big wash of delay guitar. And then, of course, Ben doing his thing with coming up with an amazing melody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good. Great record. That'll be my gym record for a couple of months here now, man.
Cool. Thank you.
Pandemic. Anything positive come out of the pandemic for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, the sense that we got to finish the record, and at least the first part of it, I didn't have a job to go to, so that helped. I think, you know, positive was more mentally, you know, perspective building was always a good thing. Realizing what's important in life. I mean, these are cliches, but damn, right? I think we
Yeah.
all, you know, I felt fortunate because I had a partner to be with, and we were all good and safe and content. So yeah, but at the very beginning, you know, Ben and I were talking about this where we were going into the studio. You know, once the testing was okay, we were going to the studio and we were able to finish the album, finish the tracks during the lockdown. And yeah, we felt fortunate because we were able to do that, and we were, you know, we had the time more than usual. You know,
Yeah.
nowadays being in a band, you do have to balance your schedule with day jobs, or maybe somebody has kids, you know, or a little bit older, so you have families. It's not like when you're 20 and you literally waking up every day and going into the studio, you know. So the lockdown actually did have that silver lining of, you know, we had a lot more time all of a sudden. So yeah.
And where are you originally from?
San Jose, California.
Okay. What was your childhood like growing up?
Typical California suburban middle class, you know. Can't complain. And then moved to San Francisco. Once I started traveling with Dredge, and Gavin Hayes from Dredge had moved to San Francisco early on, I really started enjoying cities. So getting out of the suburbs was great early on for me, and lived in San Francisco for 15 years. And then of course the traveling aspect of Dredge, we were on tour early on, you know, hitting Europe and all of that. So it was good to get out of the California suburb bubble
Yeah.
early on in life, you know.
I hear you. Mark, low points. Tell me some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
I don't think I've had a ton. I will say, you know, when you put everything into music early on in life, and then you start hitting roadblocks, that was tough. You know, when Dredge first started to peak and then slow down, that was a tough period. You know, we didn't know how to move forward at certain points, and we had some things that were in our way. And you start thinking about, well, is this where I completely quit? Is this where I go into something else in life? That was tough, you know. But at the same time, in the big picture, you just start thinking about doing other things. I went back to school for a bit. You know, I also started Black Map. That was great. So
Yeah.
things can change quickly, and you just keep on your toes and keep moving. But there were some dark moments there where when you start realizing, oh, your childhood dream is done, you know, but then you change perspectives, or some other people help out with maybe that perspective itself. And you think, well, no, nothing's ever done. You just have to look down that different path and that different path. But I've been pretty fortunate overall, you know. No terrible tragedies overall in my life, and all's well still right now.
To whatever extent you're comfortable, what kept you staying the course?
I think other people around you always help, right? You know, I think when Ben and I decided to start working with Black Map, that was really great, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was still recording on my own. I produced a record, you know, I was still dabbling in some things. There were some other projects that people would ask me to be on. I did some session work, but it was nice to have, when Dredge had slowed down, it was really nice to have another project that was mine or ours, you know, not just a project that you're working on for a couple of months and it's done. Like, oh, this is a new band and we have come up with a band name and here we go, you know, and oh my God, we're on tour again and stuff like that. So that really helped. And that comes from camaraderie of all of a sudden you're doing it again with some other partners, right?
So kind of Black Map gave you a second wind.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're using those same skills again, right?
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
let's talk about gear for a minute. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two would round out your top three?
Well, for Dredge, since it's been my whole life for the most part, I have a 68 Telecaster that's always just kind of been it for me.
It's so
SG.
funny when I see guys playing loud rock and they're playing a tele.
Oh, well, for me, I just love mid-range, and the old Telecaster, just the mid-range is so gritty. I also love SGs. And then with Black Map, I've gotten into, I play an Ibanez artist.
Saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Ibanez I've been working with them a little bit. They've been great enough to help me out. They've sent me a couple guitars, and, I wouldn't say we're not a full partnership, but Mike Arrigo over there has been very, very cool. He sent me a couple, and at NAMM, there's been a couple posters of Black Map. He's been supportive. But yeah, I'm a smaller guy, so I really love guitars that have a little bit smaller scale. Guitars that I can do full strumming, so Telecasters, SGs, the Ibanez artist kind of fit that realm where you can really pound on them, full chords. That's always kind of what I've loved. So.
And that Ibanez artist, that kind of looks like a Les Paul double cutaway.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Or what else do they call them? Yeah. The Les Paul Jr. cutout. Yeah. It looks like a Gibson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're great. They're solid. They stays in tune. I can bang on it. Great tone. So I've always dug it.
It's funny. Do you know Red Fang?
Absolutely.
David Sullivan plays a tele as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I was shocked when I that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
It's funny, like guys I've met who play teles, you either love guys that play teles freaking love teles.
Yeah, they're definitely there's a feeling if you've gotten to know the feeling of them, you love it. If you pick one up out of nowhere and you haven't played it kind of your whole life, it's going to feel a little odd.
Yeah.
But you could say that about different guitars. I think same with Strats. If you haven't grown up playing Strats and you pick one up, it's got a different feel too, right? So
yeah, well, SGs too, because the neck is heavier than.
Yep.
I love the way they sound, but for me, it was tough to play that for that reason.
Depending on the model, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What are you playing through most of the time? Like in the studio and then live?
Live, I just go Marshall heads. I go stereo. I have my gain structure and my delays and my verbs and a couple other cool little effects, maybe an octopedal. I have a Mooger Fooger ring modulator that I love. But live, it's kind of just to get the sounds that I get in the studio. In the studio, all bets are off. In the studio, it's like, kind of what's going to make this song better, or early on you come up with a rig that you really like and you stick with that. But, the studio could be combos. It could be anything.
Sure.
It's just kind of like, what's the producer think if you trust them?
Yeah.
I don't have a thing in the studio. It's just like, if you come up with a sound you like, oh shit, let's run with that.
Right.
But live, I've always found the Marshalls that I know what they're doing. I know how to get to a spot quickly. How many times you throw and go playing festivals. If I have 800s or 900s on stage, I know exactly, like bang, bang. Sometimes I don't have to turn them on. I know where the knobs are going to go,
right.
Just to get there. And then I can use my pedals. If it has to be my pedal board, of course, I can get to the gain structure easily from there. So,
right.
You got to be on your toes live. You can't just be sitting there twiddling knobs too much,
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of knowing a particular amp so well.
Yep.
Do you have any cool or interesting stories behind how you acquired any of your guitars?
I don't. I guess the only one that it would be my 68 Tele. It's not like some amazing story, but I got it back in 2002. And I guess the thing about it is that most people think that when you find a 68 Tele, it's all original parts. They think that you found it at some little boutique guitar shop. It was actually Guitar Center. So it's like,
that's wild.
The opposite. Guitar Center, every once in a while, you'll look up high and they'll have the green, I think it's green tag or whatever it is, what means vintage. And I was young and I looked young And I had some money in the bank because Dredge, we had signed whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the point is that the guy kind of scoffed at me because I didn't look like I could afford it,
Don't you hate? I fucking hate.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just like, oh, I want to try out that 68. And he's like, it's this much. And it was pricey, but I was like, I would just love to try it. I was chill about it. And I plugged it in and played it for like 30 seconds. I was like,
oh, you knew it's like love at first sight. Yeah.
Like just the feel. I mean, they always joke about the old teles. You could, it's a farming tool as well. Or you like, so heavy and burly and just solid, So yeah, so it's not an amazing story in any sense, but it's just kind of funny because it was a guitar center and the guy kind of scoffed at me and I walked out the door with it. So screw him.
Yeah, I hate that. And that in 2002. So that guitar was 34 years old then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Still playing it today. I'm using it right now in our dredge writing session. So
that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you know that guy's name? Let's out him.
Kidding, I have no idea.
I'm just kidding.
20 years ago.
I've been hanging on to this ever since. Let me. Do you have like a worst gig ever story?
I do. Yeah.
Tell me, man.
It's a Dredge gig. We played a festival in Germany called Area 4. And the reason there's a multitude of reasons why it was the worst, but like any worst gig, it's a storm, a sum of parts, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
So the first part of that storm was we played it was in Northern Germany, but we played Italy the night before. And in Italy, shows go really late. So we didn't walk off the stage till I think close to 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And we had to go straight to the airport and fly to Germany. And then, so the bus, we go to the airport, the bus has to drive itself, but there was no way we were going to get to this festival in time because we were going on at late afternoon. We had to play the festival because it just happened to be the biggest payment of the tour, the guarantee, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So money, let's be honest, money is not just because it's important to fund the tour.
Of course.
So we have to play this show. Plus Germany is our best country in Europe. So anyhow, we're on a red eye now to Germany from Italy. We all know what not sleeping does to somebody's voice.
Oh, man.
Not only do we land in Germany without much sleep, we now have to get into this van and drive because the airport, I think, was 2 hours or 3 hours. Because this festival was one of those festivals that's like out in the farmlands.
Yeah.
It's not like in an arena in a city, in a soccer arena. So you see where this is going. We're all exhausted. Luckily for me, when I'm exhausted, I can play my guitar. Gavin lost his voice.
Oh, man.
So it happens. So what you tell each other always is, well, Gavin's voice is not feeling well. We always say, pick him up. It's like in sports, it's like anything. Like we, as a band, we have to play our asses off even harder. Like you have to just go for it to pick up your teammate, and we've always been good at that. And I think it's the very second song that's our mindset. We know Gavin's having a rough go. We go into our second song and it's a song called Catch Without Arms. And the very first drop is this big keyboard chord guitar. We all land on a note. I think it's C minor. Anyhow, the back line we had rented was brand new because we had to get different backline because our bus, we flew, right? Okay. We flew and met a brand new backline. Well, guitar amps and bass amps and all that's easy. Like we were talking about, I have my pedal board, but the keyboard, when he goes to hit this note, was a half step flat.
I'm sorry, not meaning to
or sharp. It was a half step out. It was the most confusing thing in the world. You're playing an electronic instrument and it's not a Moog that's analog. It's a digital instrument. Why is it out of tune? Well, someone had gone in to the parameters and intonated the keyboard differently so that maybe they learned a song, there's ways to do that. Maybe their singer has to sing it a half step flat to find their pitch, but they only know how to play it a certain way. You know what I mean?
So is that, you mean the people who had the equipment before?
Whoever had used that keyboard before had saved the parameters.
Yeah.
It was literally a half. do you know what the half step is the worst of any, like,
Yeah.
even if it's a full step, you can kind of get out of it maybe. Plus, you don't even know, like, we didn't even know what we were hearing. It was like we were so confused.
Yeah.
So the long story short is we're all exhausted. Singer loses his voice. That in this very second song is the biggest momentum killer, because if at least you can get out of the blocks okay in a set,
Yeah.
you get through it. But right there, you're getting chopped down in song number 2. Like, so it was one of those shows, and it's so rare, but you just want to be off the stage. Like, you just,
and it's your biggest payday. So you're like,
and there's like 5,000, you're looking at 5,000 people out there. It's, a big German festival. It's 4 p.m. You're not headlining, but people are starting to funnel in.
Yeah.
That was it. It was awful. And then to add insult to injury, we got done with that. We were in a very bad mood. Of course, our bus was still like 7 hours away coming from Italy or whatever. So almost everybody had left the festival, and we're still sitting there like waiting for our bus.
Oh my God.
I don't even think we had beers to drink. We were like, it was a dark one.
That sucks, man.
But guess what? There's been so many great ones too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. That was funny, man. Thank you.
You got it.
Give me your top 3 Desert Island discs, no particular order, just for today, just for this minute.
Animals, Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
This is always a tough one. I'll go Slayer, South of Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go 3 is so hard, right?
It's so hard.
I'll go Rush, Exit Stage Left.
So let me ask you a question on the Animals one. That's a first for, usually it's 90% of the time it's probably Dark Side.
Right.
And the balance is usually Wish You Were Here.
Right.
What do you like more about? I love Animals, but I do like Dark Side. I Wish You Were Here better. Although when I listen to Animals, I'm like, why don't I listen to this more often? What makes you pick Animals?
I love Animals because it's right in between the atmospheric, amazing early 70s Floyd and the dark, almost like punk rock edge of Roger Waters' The Wall when it became that. I also love the production on Animals. I think it just sounds absolutely incredible. It has that dark introspection, almost punk rock edge, but it has the atmosphere. Some of Gilmore's most amazing solos. So I just love the balance of it. When you take the 70s Floyd, let's go like metal to the wall. I just think I think it encompasses everything.
Yeah. It is pretty. The lyrics on that record are super dark. On Animals.
He was pissed. He was pissed. He's calling people out.
Did you ever see the Dark Side of the Moon documentary? It's called The Making of Dark. I really love that, man. It was really interesting to hear those guys talk.
Absolutely. It always is. It always is with them, to hear them, describe what was going on back then.
Yeah, and you can see why now, the way they both act. Like Gilmore's super like private and quiet, and it's almost like you kind of feel sad for. It's like, you don't need to be acting out like this, man. You've just, he's always just like saying weird things, and
yeah, they're polar opposites when it comes to personality. That's for sure.
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah.
Mark, tell me something that you want that you don't have now. And it could be something tangible, or it could be like a new mindset or outlook, anything like that.
It's a tough one. I'm feeling pretty content these days, I guess.
That's awesome.
I know one. I would love to get back to a spot where the routine of going on tour feels like it was, a couple of years ago. Getting back out on the road, having albums out, just getting back to that would be awesome. Not having to always nowadays I'm waiting for that email that the tour is canceled, which I've had in the last couple of months, right? And it's no sob story. It's, you push on, it's all good, but
it is what it is.
That would be great. That would be great to get back to like where I'm on the road most of the year, and the wheels are going again. The ball's rolling again, if you will, to use a cliche.
any indication of when that might happen? At least now, because like as you said, you don't know. You're always waiting for an email.
I mean, it feels like the cliche would be, you just say the next year, right? 2022. I mean, there has been a lot of announcements. I know Black Map should have an announcement coming up. We have a tour coming up in the spring of 22. I don't know if I can say what, but point is that should be announced soon. I saw like Korn and Chevelle are going out in March of 22.
Yeah.
So there are good signs, right? That there are big announcements going on. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Tell me the best decision you ever made.
Best decision I ever made. Wow. I read that one and I was hoping you wouldn't ask it.
Right.
I don't know. I guess the best decision I ever made was to get together with the Dredge guys and start playing music. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like
it doesn't.
The odds that we all met each other at such a young age. We don't take that for granted. We kind of met in different ways. I met Drew on the baseball field. I met Gavin somehow. I think I met Gavin like in a Tool mosh pit or something. I forget. But early on, they were on Lollapalooza or something. Point is that just the fact that we all were going, we're right around the same age and we were going to the same school together or schools. And the decision to kind of call each other on our landlines in 1993 and, play cover songs together.
Yeah. How do you look at stuff like that happens? Do you look at that as like serendipity or random or like higher power stuff or like when things come together?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say I'm a spiritual person. But yeah, I think there's synchronicity is an interesting thing in life.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't look too far into it. I just look at like maybe the fact that maybe you're fortunate that you get together and do things like that, or the idea that you made the right decisions. Like the question prior to that is, I'm glad I made that decision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes chance is an amazing thing, right?
Yeah. I think it's good when I look at shit too much. I think it's good when it was like refreshing. When you said, I don't look into things like that too much. I'm like, Craig, you need to do some of that because it's like less, like your brain doesn't need to work. I'm older than you. So I've had more years of this, working. And I'm like,
I hear it.
I need to fucking dial this thing down a little bit. And that would help. Do you have a hero?
Musically, Dave Gilmour's definitely up there. Early on, it was Randy Rhoads. I didn't go as into the soloing world as him, but I just loved his use of minor keys and dark keys, or even using major keys, but making them sound dark. I mean, the guy was just absolute genius.
Really was.
And then, definitely some heroes outside of music. For me, science has been huge. So
cool.
I've always loved Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
People like that I consider heroes just because of their perspective on life and things of that sort. So yeah, there's a couple there.
Every time I hear Carl Sagan, I can't help but go back to that, like from the 80s, maybe when billions and billions. Do you remember that?
The pale blue dot.
Yeah, it was just, but his billions, and they quoted that it was on like Saturday Night Live. It was on there like billions. Yeah. Everybody was saying that. Yeah, but he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah,
all right. Tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
What I like most, I would say my easygoingness, for the most part. I mean, some of my bandmates will tell you I can get moody, but overall, I stay pretty even keel, not too high, not too low. I think that comes from listening, I tend to be proud of that. I'm always there to listen and not go off the rails in either direction.
Good. Yeah, that's cool. Best childhood memory.
Oh, wow. Best childhood memory. Well, I guess you lived a good childhood when, I feel fortunate. I can say that there's probably a few, but
that's great.
I don't know, maybe my first baseball game with my grandfather. I remember going to Candlestick Park.
Oh, that's cool.
That was pretty damn cool. And that was the first of many. I'm a huge San Francisco Giants fan. So, and you know, Gavin and I and the Dredge singer, we formed a big bond going to baseball games too throughout our lives together. So started with my grandfather taking me, and then, you know, of course with my father, and then Gavin and I started going to games in college, and just, we still go if we can, you know. But
that's cool.
When we were living together, we were both in San Francisco for a period. We were writing Catch Without Arms and Pariah as well, Dredge records, and we'd probably get to like 20 games a year.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
After rehearsal, you know, go to a game, catch a game.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So,
do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yeah, I love science. I love science stuff. Astronomy is huge to me. I'm a sports fan. I love soccer and baseball a lot. Watched Steph Curry become the all-time 3-point leader last night. So I'm a big Warriors fan as well. My girl and I like to get out and ride bikes and walk, and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, man, you're pretty well balanced here.
I try. I need to read more though. My girlfriend keeps telling me that.
There's always something we need to do more, man. It's like,
something.
I mean, it's like, you know,
when I say read, I mean fiction. I read nonfiction, but for some reason I haven't picked up a novel in a bit, you know, and it's just one of those things, like you go in phases, you know. So
have you ever read or heard of Haruki Murakami?
She's the one that tried to get me into him, I think like 3 years ago. So
I think you'd like him because
that's what she said. Yeah.
Well, there's a science fiction component to a lot of his novels, and he's just
like
off
Isaac Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke or
this guy's just off, and he's got certain things that are in every book of his, and one of them is like a jazz club. He's really into jazz, and he'll always talk about cooking spaghetti, cooking boiled eggs. I think you would dig that.
Well, I'm a huge Kurt Vonnegut fan.
I've not read any of his books
myself.
So
he does this. Him and Douglas Adams do that similar thing where from novel to novel, you'll have a different story, of course, and different characters, but other things from other novels can always work themselves in.
Yeah, I like that.
That's cool. That's really cool. You know, I like when bands do that too, right? With albums and songs, Floyd does that, right? Where you work in themes from other albums.
Totally.
Cool. Yeah.
Favorite place you've traveled?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I'd say, and this is going to change with time because I've heard from my friends that are from there. But when we first went to Istanbul, Turkey,
wow,
Dredge played there in 2011. I had an amazing experience, fell in love with the city. Unfortunately, my Turkish friends that I still keep in touch with have told me that it's changed quite a bit due to
the political president. Yeah.
So when we were there, we played the show, and the show probably made me even biased somewhat because we showed up, we didn't know what to expect. It was Dredge's first time there. And so, I didn't know what to expect. And it was just, there were so many more people than we thought there were going to be. And it was just an amazing show. But then we ended up out in the town in this little neighborhood called Taksim in Istanbul. And it was kind of the nightlife neighborhood, you know, and there were bars and restaurants and clubs. I ended up in this one nightclub and there was a Sepultura cover band. And I was like, this is awesome. And
that's wild.
Yeah. And there was, you know, kebab stands and the point is apparently that, and it was like 3 a.m. and, you know, and it was just raging, and it was just, everyone was so nice. And apparently like that place like shuts down at like 9 p.m. now. Like there's like curfews.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
that's horrible.
That question, I'm answering the question because it's like, well, apparently I was there, and we went back in 2013, I think. And we didn't get to do all that as much that time, I think, just because of our schedule. But I mean, what I experienced there, and we got to stay there in 2011. We got to stay there for a few more days. It was the end of our tour, so it was just good timing. And they were amazing hosts. The promoters who hosted us there were just so amazing. So it was a great experience. So I'm glad I got to do it. but I've also been able to travel to other places not having to do with music. Central America has been amazing for me to travel to.
What made you go there?
I had a girlfriend at the time who was an anthropologist. So she would be in different countries studying Mesoamerican culture, which is basically
That's
mine.
wild.
So either be Yucatan, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize. And so when she got to move around, I could visit her in different countries, which was spoiling. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you played any festivals with Sepultura?
I haven't. Well, since the original lineup, the original lineup, Max left, the singer left
right
before my career was really going. I mean, we were going, but I wasn't touring yet. I've played shows with Soulfly. So it's cool to hear those songs live for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I didn't get to experience touring with them. I did get to see the original lineup a few times. So all good there. Yeah. I saw the Chaos AD tour in a small club in San Francisco in '93. And that just,
wow.
One of the loudest concerts I've ever heard. So,
yeah, they're pretty
amazing.
I had Andreas on here, and I got to tell you, he's a very nice guy. Totally, just a class, super family oriented, and cool. Just a very nice, pleasant guy.
Love it. Love his guitar playing.
Yeah, he's a monster. Tell me the toughest decision, Mark, that you ever had to make, or most difficult thing you had to do.
I think dropping out of school. I wouldn't say that's a tough one, because I wouldn't say it was difficult for me to decide, but it was definitely tough to, the age old call your parents and tell them that you're dropping out of college. But like I said before, they were supportive,
Yeah.
But like I said, it wasn't tough for me because I knew what I wanted. I wanted to play music, but it is tough to tell them that, or just to realize that, or to ask yourself, are you making the right decision, or to convince them that you are,
Yeah.
And I still don't know today if I didn't make the right decision, right?
Well, I know you said you need to read more, but you seem pretty well read to me, because you know a lot about a lot.
Oh yeah. I think I was talking more about
just novels. Yeah. You're definitely well read. I'm like,
yeah. No, and I used to read novels a lot. It's just been it's just one of those things where I got out of the phase of doing it.
Yeah.
I definitely like to, like I said, I like to read all sorts of the things to gain knowledge and keep up on this universe of ours. But I just haven't picked up a good old novel in a while.
Yeah. Best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
Terry Date once told me to stop thinking.
Terry Date?
Who's when that? I'm playing my guitar. Terry Date's the producer who produced Catch That Arms. He produced most of the Deftones records, the Pantera records. Yeah. So all those great Pantera records from the '90s. That's Terry Date. And I was doing some guitars once for the Catch That Arms record, and it was getting late. And I just couldn't get it. And he told me to stop thinking and just and play,
That's so cool. Stop thinking and just play.
Yeah.
All right, man. One last question, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
I know you're doing a lot of interviews. Biggest change in your personality over, say, the last 7 to 10 years, and how much of that change has been deliberate, and how much has been a natural part of aging?
I'm getting more and more easygoing, less uptight. I've heard different people have said different things about life. Some people say as you get older, you get more uptight. All my bandmates, especially Dredge, will tell you that early on I was a stress case. For all of our early shows, I was just, I'd wind up so tight. And over the years, I've become a lot more loose and kind of, I think confidence helps with becoming less uptight. Perspective from traveling, from experiencing all the things we've done musically, kind of just realizing that, as long as you put the practice in and you're ready to go, and it's not worth stressing out about or getting uptight about things. And also just as I've gotten older, just realizing that there's a lot of amazing things in this world, and there's a lot of terrible things in this world, and building, winding yourself up about any of them either way is maybe probably not going to help all the time. So as long as you feel like you're doing the right thing and you're doing what you need to be doing, go with it and go from there, So yeah, I've loosened up a lot.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your straightforward answer on that.
Yeah, you got it.
Let me tell people where to find you, what you got going on. So again, it's Mark Engles, and Mark's bands are Dredge, DREDG, and Black Map. Find these bands on, first of all, the Melodoria, the new album. I would love you to check out all the records from Dredge and Black Map, but the new record, Melodoria, it is, man, it's just amazing.
Thanks.
It's just a beautiful, I mean, it's weird to say beautiful with that, but it's a beautiful record, man. I mean, even though it's loud music, it's a beautiful freaking record. And that will be out early February
18th.
February 18th.
Yeah, Ben texted me.
February 18th. So stay tuned. Please download it, buy it, or whatever you do to consume. Check out the band's socials. It's Dredge Official, again, DREG, and it's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And Black Map Music, same thing, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Any final words of wisdom?
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, man. I appreciate everything. Thanks so much for your time. All right. Again, check out Melodoria and check out Black Map, and Dredge. February 18th is a new record. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your socials. We appreciate that. Thanks very much to Mark Engles for all his time, and look forward to hearing Melodoria when it comes out. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, Craig.